acknowledging that we're located on the traditional lands of the first people of Charleston, the Edewan, Kiowa, Edisto, Natchez, Cuso, Santi, and Wasamasa people, we acknowledge and honor all indigenous people who lived, labored, and were faithful stewards of the land. We express our deep gratitude for the land and continued faithful stewardship to the next generations. We also acknowledge the lives and labor of the Africans who were enslaved to build Charleston, South Carolina. On this campus and in this space, African and African-descendant people use skilled labor in ornamental ironwork, historic architecture, and low-country agriculture and food production. As a member of the College of Charleston community, I acknowledge the Black lives and labor that built our city and our campus. The practice of starting today's event with land and labor acknowledgements is a way of resisting the erasure of indigenous histories and the histories of marginalized people. My name is Nadia Bendaño, so welcome and it's great to see you. I'm the program director of the Latin American and Caribbean Studies program, and LACS is delighted and excited to have Kim Haas visiting with us today. Kim Haas is executive producer, host, and creator of Afro-Latino Travels with Kim Haas, a travel show celebrating the African influence in Latin America. She has traveled extensively throughout Latin America. Kim has been active in Afro-Latino issues for more than a decade and is founder of Afro-Latinos.com, a blog celebrating Afro-Latino culture. Kim speaks fluent Spanish, Italian, and Portuguese. Her undergraduate and graduate degrees are in Spanish, yes. Kim is owner of Haas Media LLC, a multilingual community outreach, translation services, and communications firm located in the greater New York City area. Kim Haas's visit is made possible by the generous co-sponsorships of the School of Languages, Cultures, and World Affairs, the Office of Institutional Diversity, the Hispanic Studies Department, the African American Studies Program, the Hospitality, Tourism, and Management Department, the Carolina Low Country and Atlantic World Program, the History Department, the International Studies Program, First Year Experience, the Women's and Gender Studies Program, and the Political Science Department. LACS is grateful for the support of all the co-sponsors. So please join me in welcoming Kim.
Thank you so much. Bom dia, boa tarde. Good afternoon. And I started, a friend of mine who was at Peart, Evelyn Laurent. And Evelyn was from Venezuela. Anybody from Venezuela? Anybody been to Venezuela? Yeah? Cool. What part? Caracas, yeah. So I wanted to eventually go to Venezuela, and I meet Evelyn's brothers. And Evelyn's brothers look like they could be my brother. So I said, hey, yeah. Then I'm starting to travel all these other countries. And I go to Cuba and Brazil and Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic. And I see more and more people who look like me. And I'm learning more and more about the African diaspora in Latin America. And then I turn on the television, I turn on Telemundo and Univision, and there's nobody who looks like me. So there's a real gap, yeah, head shaking, right? Between the people I'm meeting, these incredible dancers, chefs, cooks, artists. When I go to these countries, I'm seeking out, where are the Afro-Venezuelan musicians, the Cuban dancers, the Puerto Rican poets. And then you turn on television, Telemundo and Univision, and there's nobody. None of these people. And so eventually I come up with an idea, which I'll share with you all in a little bit. But just to give you an idea, when you travel throughout Latin America, of the great diversity of the country, of the region, okay? So, next slide, please. So, how did all these people of African descent get to Latin America? How did all these amazing poets and dancers and writers that I'm meeting get to Latin America? You all familiar with the transatlantic slave route? Everybody? Okay. So, we're talking, so this is in Nicaragua. So I just wanted to share that with you, that there are communities of Afro-Brazilians in these fields. Next slide, please, Maria. And this is, I like to call this slide a gentleman in Rio. This is Antonio. And I love Antonio. You can see his smile, right? This gentleman, he's the bellman at the Copacabana Marriott, where I was staying. And I just loved him. I would see him every morning, and we would always talk. And he told me how hard it is for him as a black man in Rio. He said that people, when he walks across the street, people walk the other way. He said people grab their bags. He is the kindest, sweetest man you've ever met. And I think about and I wonder, will he be able to be all that he can be? Will he be able to express himself and live out his true dream, whatever that is? If it's to be a bellman, to be the best bellman you can. But does he have dreams to do anything else? Because I'll say, I love Brazil, but it's tough. I was in Brazil when I was there. There were moments when I cried, thinking about the extreme racism in the country and how incredibly hard it must be for black and brown people in Brazil. And will they get a chance to be all that they can be? Because we miss out as human beings when people don't get a chance to be all that they can and express themselves fully. Who knows what Antonio could be? Doctor, lawyer, engineer, whatever. And I always wonder, will he get a chance to be the kind of person and dream his biggest dream? Next slide, please. Mexico. I know you're going to. This is a picture of a family in Mexico, and I cried. And it happened to be on Martin Luther King Day. And I was with a woman named Nogueira, and she was just incredible, lovely. And her grandfather, Cartola, was an incredible, shaking your head, musician and prolific samba song writer. So he wrote over, I think, 500 samba songs. Samba was founded and started by Afro-Brazilian, make no mistake about it. And Nilcimar was telling me how throughout the years, samba has, many times Afro-Brazilians could not even participate in samba. They were held up, kept from participating in something they created. And she talked about, that's why I said I love Brazil, but she talked about the racism in Brazil. And I just cried. And she talked about how incredibly challenging it is. When you go to Brazil, for example, not just in Brazil, but throughout Latin America, when I was in Salvador in December, another city in Brazil, north of Rio, Salvador is 60 to 70%, at least minimum, 70, 80% black and brown people. I'm in the hotel for 10 days. There is no one at the front desk who is black. For 10 days. My last day when I'm leaving, there's a black woman at the front desk. I'm shocked. And I asked her, Amanda, and I asked her, and I talked to her, I said, how did you get this job? Because I've been here 10 days and I don't see anybody at the front desk. And she said, I think it's because I speak English. Mm-hmm. But the white people didn't speak English. Mm. So that's the idea of you have to be not, there's no basic. You got to be better than have all the skills and then some. And it's hard, it's painful to see. All the staff, the servants, I don't say the servants, but the people doing a lot of the labor, bringing the furniture in, the heavy lifting, literally heavy lifting. I remember there was an event going on where black people, dark skin at that. So it's not just the racism, but then the colorism. It's hard, and I love Latin America. But sometimes, I sometimes am at a loss for words. Because what happens is that all, as I said, like Antonio and all these wonderful people who don't even get a chance to be all that they can be, and we miss out on them. And all their gifts. And so I think there's, I think a lot of times quickly people learn that I'm from the US, so they make distinctions. Not always. but many times. But I make sure when I'm there that I speak to Black folks, that I wave, that I say hello, that I am respectful, that I'm a good guest in anyone's country. But I was in Cuba and the man thought I was a prostitute and would not let me in the hotel. I mean, really? Right. So I won't even go into all, the examples, but I'll just say this to say, it is very, very, and I'm not even talking about people, Native Americans in Latin America and what they must go through. I'm not sharing their stories. But as a person of African descent, it's sometimes, as a visitor, it's very challenging. But I get inspired by the people and their willingness to be unstoppable and their desire to keep going and keep strengthening themselves and their communities and doing for each other. And that's what keeps me going and wanting to tell their stories so that we can see and learn from them. So I just try and keep going and trying to be a good guest and learn. But yeah, sometimes I cry.